Hello everyone, it's me again. Today I will recap the movie Gran Turismo. This is a movie based on a true story. Have you ever seen a racer like that? While driving, all its parts fell apart. It turned out that it wasn't the car that was broken, but this guy could feel every detail of the machine. He could even feel the brakes being inert for just a few milliseconds, and that was something that only a veteran mechanic could discover. Yet the guy sitting playing a simulation racing game could feel it. It was an unimaginable thing. Just like the way he achieved third place in the legendary French Le Mans racing tournament. To know how this guy is so incredibly talented, please watch today's recap. 25 years ago, the world's most realistic and accurate car racing simulation game was created by Japanese game designer Kazunori Yamauchi. It's called Gran Turismo, with the hope that everyone can access this racing sport. The film opens in Cardiff, England, with a clothing salesman named Jann who is extremely passionate about the racing game Gran Turismo on PlayStation. Jann always says that it's not a game, but a racing simulation. Today, he receives the simulation steering wheel that he ordered with his hard-earned money from selling clothes. With great excitement, Jann immediately sits down in front of the screen, but right at the climax, his father walks in and invites him to play soccer, making Jann lose all interest. His father used to be a professional player in the city, so he also wants his son to follow his career as a player. But the game-addicted son firmly refuses to continue with his passion, he always believing that one day, thanks to this simulation game, he will become a real racer. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, Danny Moore, a motorsport marketing director, went to Nissan and pushed the idea of creating a GT Academy. He wanted to organize a competition for 80 million Gran Turismo players, in which the best gamers would be trained to become real-life racers. His crazy idea was unexpectedly accepted, on one condition: he had to find a talented chief engineer to train, and above all, it had to be safe, without any errors. So Danny immediately made a list with a series of names. Calling 10 people, 9 of them refused, and the other person still doesn't know the result. At Gaza the Rich Racing, Team Kappa, the maintenance engineer of this racing team is Jack. While lying on his stomach under the racing car to upgrade it, he was informed that someone was looking for him. It was none other than Danny. Danny found the last person on the list. Danny tried to convince Jack to accept the job as chief engineer for the GT Academy racing team, but in the end, he only received a shake of the head from the engineer. Jack thought that putting game addicts, who only sat in front of the screen on a real racing car, was crazy and extremely dangerous. Sitting in a car at 300 kilometers per hour was very strange, and not as simple as sitting and looking at the number 300 on the computer screen, and just pressing the play button every time there was an accident. So Danny had to sadly leave. That same night, the Kappa racing team was taken to a party by the boss. There, the main racer of this Kappa team, who was very favored by the boss. Because of his talent, he always acted in haughty. While the people in the team kept praising him for his swerving and dodging on the sidewalks, Jack just sat silently and frowned. And that annoyed the young man. He slammed the table, pointed at Jack's face, and said that Jack was just a mechanic, and that Jack's glorious past of 15 years ago was a thing of the past. Jack couldn't bear it any longer. He stood up and left without saying a word. After that, he called Danny and accepted the offer to become the chief engineer. Thus, the GT Academy was officially established. The first thing they did was send out a notice to top Gran Turismo players about a skills test. Jann didn't know about this, and he was busy serving the customer who bought the shirt. Luckily, one of Jann's comrades at the game shop found the notice and immediately texted Jann. So Jann quickly cycled to the shop, and when he turned on his computer, he found out that he was qualified to participate in the qualifying exam. The opportunity had come. He immediately started practicing his skills to prepare for the competition tomorrow. That night, Jann was invited to a party by his brother Kobe. There, he met a girl named Orty. While he was flirting with her, the police arrived. All the participants hurriedly fled. Jann and Kobe were chased by the police, but with his super cool driving skills, Jann swerved and turned the car around, leaving the police helpless. In the end, he was able to escape from the police, but his father's rearview mirror was also shattered. The two returned home to find their father Steve waiting. So the next day, Steve took Jann to the construction site where he was working hard every day, teaching Jann a lesson that Jann would end up like him if Jann didn't go back to school, but continued pursuing his dream of becoming a racer. But Jann didn't listen to his father and immediately left. When he rushed to the game shop, it was just in time for the competition to start. He needed to finish first in his group. And of course, for a gamer like him, passing this competition was easy. In the end, He also received the qualification to join the GT Academy. Jann eagerly prepared to pack up and leave, but Steve kept trying to stop his son, because racing in real life doesn't have as many lives to replay as in the game. However, Jann pointed to the picture he always hung on the wall, in which he saw the longing eyes of a child next to a racing car. Seeing his son so passionate about his life's purpose, Steve had no choice but to let his son fulfill his dream. At the GT Academy, the 10 best simulator racers from all over the world compete during their time at the Academy to win an official spot in Nissan's Nismo racing team. Jack then gave a speech that was more of a warning than a motivational one. As the chief engineer, Jack reiterated, "This is not a game, it is the real world, with enough speed to send you to the altar by a stupid decision at a crucial moment." So the training with Jack began. First, it was a 10 kilometers run, running stairs, then practicing reflexes. When getting in the car, they had to continuously repeat difficult turns. Unable to withstand the harsh training environment, 5 gamers, who could not meet the requirements, gave up. The rest persevered and trained twice as hard. During this time, they were also trained in speaking in front of the media. That was what Jann found most difficult. During a practice drive where Jack was in the passenger seat, the brake slipped for a few milliseconds, causing the car to crash straight into the guardrail. Jack thought Jann didn't brake soon enough, but Jann insisted that the brakes were worn out. However, Jack didn't believe him, because no driver could detect the brake failure in a few milliseconds. Jann replied that he had calibrated the simulated cars thousands of times. And sure enough, the test results showed that the car had worn brakes, to Jack's surprise. Finally, Jack accepted Jann into the top 5. The next day, the players prepared for a real race to find the final winner. Jann was still shaking. He could only encourage himself to think of it as a game. The race started and Jann was in last place on lap 2, until lap 7, Jann managed to get to 3rd place. Then, quickly changing direction, and passing the driver in front of him, moving out to 2nd place. In the final lap, Jann faced Matty. The race became more tense than ever when both of them turned on the turbo. Since the turbo needed time to recover, he decided to take a risk and choose a tight corner to overtake in this corner. This was something he had done thousands of times in front of the computer screen, but this was the first time he had applied it in real life. Take a deep breath, release the brake and press the gas. Both ran parallel to the finish line. The referee didn't even have time to see who finished first. In the control room, Jack kept a close eye on Jann's car, which had crossed the finish line first. When Jack was about to announce the winner, Danny stopped him. Danny advised Jack not to choose Jann, because Jann's poor interview skills could affect the image of the Nismo racing team. Jack proved that, although he was a strict teacher, he was a fair person, and he decided to announce Jann as the winner. If it weren't for this teacher, we probably wouldn't have the movie The Great Racer, a story based on a real person in real life. After that, he was flown to Austria on a Nissan private jet. There, Jann was informed that the condition for signing a contract with Nissan was that he had to finish at least 4th in an official race to be granted a professional racing license. So, Jann had to start conquering official races in Europe. Unfortunately for Jann, the arrogant racer of the Kappa team very hated Jack and always tried to sabotage him. In his official race in Austria, Jann felt the pressure from the suffocating atmosphere of the huge audience. Moreover, from the first refueling, he was mocked by the old mechanic and his team. Old mechanic said that he please tried to run the whole race and called him a fake chicken. Jann had to come last when the Kappa guy played dirty and pushed his rear, causing his car to spin and fly off the track. The next race in Germany was no different. He finished 23rd, due to communication equipment problems. Then the following races in Italy, Turkey, Spain, although the results were not as expected, the achievements also gradually improved. At the same time, his physical health and combat experience were also gradually accumulated. By the 6th official race in Dubai, it was also the last chance for Jann to get a professional license, along with a historic contract with Nissan's Nismo racing team. After a period of hard training, Jann showed his determination and confidence. Right in the first lap, he was squeezed by Kappa until his rearview mirror broke, but he was still determined not to give up. Putting all his concentration into it, he turned on the turbo to accelerate right at the corner. As a result, his car overtook the bright yellow Kappa, who was inhaling the fumes and got angry, so Kappa stepped on the gas. Because he was going too fast, Kappa couldn't handle it in time, and crashed straight into the car in front. Although he avoided the 2 cars that had crashed, Jann's car also had a cracked windshield. He tried his best to finish 4th by a hair's breadth. As for Kappa, he was taken back by the medical department for treatment. But perhaps the biggest pain for Kappa at this time was failure. Through that, Jann signed a historic contract with Nissan, something that had never happened to a racer who came from a gamer background. That night, Jann decided to call his crush. He said he wanted to see her again. The next day, his crush was also in Tokyo. The two officially kissed. Germany's Nürburgring was Jann's first race after signing the contract. As a professional racer. Before the start of the race, he gave a gift to Jack, his devoted mentor, who had always been there to support him. This was never an easy race for a novice like him. The first few laps went smoothly, as he raced steadily, and was consistently in the lead. But as the convoy crossed the vast fields, Jack seemed to sense something. When he checked the weather data, the current wind speed was 34 kilometers per hour. He immediately asked Jann to stop for fuel on this lap. But then, at a steep slope and after accelerating, Jann's entire car flew into the air. As a result, the car was sucked straight into the fence, to the horror of his parents, who were watching him on TV. Both Jack and Danny were shocked and heartbroken by this scene. Fortunately, the car's safety system was surprisingly good, which saved him from death. But a spectator standing near the fence was unlucky and died. This caused Jann to face a huge psychological shock due to guilt. He even wanted to give up his career when he had just started. Looking at the gift his student gave him, Jack was filled with tears, and his teacher decided to reveal to Jann the reason he gave up racing, when he was at the peak of his career. 10 years ago, he had also accidentally caused an accident, and it took the life of another racer. That made him give up his driving career. But until now, he has always regretted this decision. He was scared and cowardly when he could not overcome the trauma after the incident, did not dare to face it to continue to discover how great he was. And now, he has to gnaw on the failure in his own shadow. Therefore, Jack persuaded his student Jann to avoid following in his footsteps, and to bravely move on. This sincere encouragement worked for Jann. But another problem arose. Kappa and his fellow racers colluded to take advantage of that accident, to ask the Racing Association to revoke Jann's qualifications, arguing that the simulated racer could cause another accident. This also affected Nissan, which also considered canceling the sponsorship contract. In this difficult situation, Danny made a bold and challenging move. He wanted to prove to them the strength of simulated racers. Danny called Jann's two teammates at the GT Academy to form a team of 3 sim racers, and their goal was to stand on the podium at the legendary French Le Mans race. This was a grueling 24-hour race, thereby extinguishing all doubts about the existence of sim racers. On the day of the race, Jann's father came to see him in person. Steve couldn't hold back his tears, and apologized to his son for not supporting his passion before. Jann also hugged his father tightly, saying that he was always proud of his father, and always put the Bluebird logo of the CA Deep team on his hat before every race. With this great encouragement, he showed his determination with his 2 teammates. A solemn and enthusiastic opening ceremony. The French army directly handed over the Le Mans flag to the organizing committee. This showed the importance of this tournament to professional racers. Since Jann was more experienced than his colleagues, he started the first race to get some sleep before returning for the final laps. On the first lap, a close Kappa racer, in an attempt to squeeze Jann, got into a terrible accident. It was terrible to witness this scene, reminding him of the day of the accident and feeling guilty. Jann became distracted, gradually slowing down and falling behind. Jack saw this and tried to talk to Jann, but he had no response. To calm him down, Jack played Jann's favorite song, which Jann always listened to during practice, through the car's communication system. This really motivated Jann, bringing him back to reality. He regained his spirit, and easily overtook the cars in front. The grueling 24 hours of Le Mans race continued, with the drivers enduring hours of chasing their rivals. As day turned to night, the Nesmore team slowly picked up the pace, climbing to 5th place. Unfortunately, 19 hours into the race, a teammate suffered a cramp, forcing Jann to return to the track early. On top of that, while changing a wheel, a clumsy mechanic dropped a lug nut, leaving the Nesmo team behind. By the time Jack out and fitted the lug nut himself, Jann had fallen to 9th place. With only a few laps left, the only way to get to the podium was to drive on instinct, and take risks by taking shortcuts. Something he had learned and practiced very well while playing Gran Turismo. Thanks to that, he gradually overtook and gradually took 4th place, even breaking the lap record, making everyone admire him. The final lap saw Jann and the Kappa duel for 3rd place on the podium. The decisive moment appeared at the last corner, right before the finish line. Jann took the risk of turning on the turbo right in the corner. Jann slowly rose to create a breathtaking 2-horse race to the finish line for those who supported him. When the whole Nesmo team rushed out to witness the historic moment, Jann's car finished just over half a body length ahead of the Kappa, making everyone burst into joy. Teacher Jack collapsed to the ground, and sales manager Danny was so happy that he couldn't stand up straight. They gave Nissan third place and a podium finish. This victory was a slap in the face to Kappa and his arrogant followers, thereby affirming the position of simulator racers in the hearts of fans. The whole thing is a true story in real life. Jann has actually competed in more than 200 professional races. To add more authenticity to the film, he even played a stunt double for the character named after him. It was truly a great emotional film. The film ends here. Sometimes we think of life in a too rigid way. Who says the driver simulator the cabin is not realistic? Because of that saying, Jann broke the world record and achieved third place in the legendary Le Mans race in France. On the road to glory is extremely difficult. Without a good teacher to guide, plus self-encouragement, success is something unimaginable. I hope that on the road to your dream, you will always have good luck. Thank you very much for supporting the channel to develop as it is today. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and a comment about this movie. Especially, please subscribe to the channel to follow my movie recap. See you again, my dear friends.